Traz a lenha pro fogão, vem fazer armação. Hoje é um dia de sol, alegria de goió, é curtir o verão. Traz a lenha, rojão, traz a lenha pro fogão, vem fazer armação. Hoje é um dia de sol, alegria de goió, é curtir o verão.
Bom dia, galera. Hoje eu vou levar ao Brasil a uma comida mais famosa da rua, o coxinha. Otherwise, we go to Brazil and I'm gonna show you one of my favorite street foods from Brazil, the coxinha de frango, aka coxinha with chicken. What do we need? Let me show you. What is coxinha? Coxinha, like I said, is a typical Brazilian street food. When I was in Brazil, I used to eat it in the early morning. Yes, I kid you not, in the early morning for breakfast. It felt right down to your stomach and it was, oh my god, so delicious. What do we need? We need flour, chicken stock, milk, butter. That is to make our basic dough. For our filling, that's why it's called de frango, chicken, we need chicken. I already finely chopped some onion and garlic. Spice wise, feel free. In my case, I'm gonna use a sweet smoked paprika powder, and a herb I love to use parsley, but it also comes with cilantro or coriander, depends on the part of the world you're speaking English. We're gonna start off with our dough. And in the meanwhile, we're gonna also heat up our chicken. The most famous pots and pans, here they are. In the pan, we start with the butter. "100 grams of butter goes in. We're bringing that, letting it melt. It doesn't need to be browned. We're not gonna make it burn us up like I did with my barbecue sauce for my arepa that I made in my earlier video. That was yesterday. As you see, my butter is melted. I'm adding in now my chicken stock. Give it a stir. Well, the basic recipe shows that you bring out water with 2 cubes and then you add in your flour, what we're gonna do later, in with the milk. Full fat milk. Don't be afraid. I'm going to be fat anyway during this period of time. And we have to enjoy life a little as well. We're gonna bring this to a simmer. For those who've seen my eclair video, same process, only this time it's not equal amounts of butter, stock, milk and flour. Like I said, 100 grams of butter with 500 grams of chicken stock with 500 grams of milk, and on top of that goes 600 grams of flour once this is coming to a boil. Same process once this is simmering and begins to boil. The flour goes in. I'm gonna stir it very well. Make sure the gluten gets activated, and then we set it aside before we make the coxinha. I have the ability to pronouncing the X that's in there. The X in there is actually silent, so it's coxinha, not coxinha. So for my Brazilian friends, desculpa. And that's Portuguese for sorry. While that's getting to a boil, I have here my other pan. It's already warm. In with some oil. I like to use neutral oil, like I said, most of the time. We start off with our finely chopped onion and garlic. As you can see, I've chopped it really fine. And the reason for that is that I want it this fine because it's going to be in our dough filling. And yesterday with my arepa, it was like we can use a lot of filling in it, but with coxinha you have to be careful not to put too much in it, and later you will see why. It will be ready when it starts to golden a little bit, when it starts to turn to color. You can also smell it when it's ready. This became to the boil. We drop it in all at once. Now we start to stir. Once all be careful, it is hot and you don't want any of the white parts in there. That means that the flour did not get absorbed by the liquids. Stir it in. It will be thick, so a little bit of elbow grease, great exercise. I used to make these in a different way when I was apprentice in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. We had them as a starter, deep fried with herbs. I'm gonna turn it off. Because as you see, this gets golden now. In with the chicken. Otherwise, your garlic will burn if you're not careful, and you don't want that burnt flavor in there. Just in time. I was just in time. Putting up the heat a little bit. In with my spices. Like I said, salt, pepper. Stir it in. The heat of the pan is going to make sure the spices will give its flavor. It's called mioteri. Miote. Mine is a little too dark, but I like smoked paprika, so that's fine. In with my herbs. Okay, turn off the heat. Set it aside and let it cool. Same goes for the dough. I'm gonna let it cool and then we're gonna work it. I've taken the dough, divided them in 2 portions. The rest of the dough you can store in your refrigerator. Now we're gonna make the shape of the coxinha. But before you do that, first we're gonna knead the dough a little bit, that it's nice and elastic to work with. It takes a couple of hours to cool it down, like I showed you with my other videos, how to roll it. Let's see with this amount. I'll shape it in a bowl first. Simple. You flatten it in your hand. You make a well in the middle, like a cup. A little bit of the mixture goes in, just a little bit. Then you start to bring it to the center, like you're folding it in. If you've made dumplings, then this is easy for you to do. Now comes the tricky part, because coxinha is a cone shape. Those who made arancini before know what I'm talking about. And this is more or less the shape you are looking for. This is the first stage before we continue to our next stage. The next stage in our process is to coat them in breadcrumbs. I've taken 3 whole eggs, just beaten them up. And I got here breadcrumbs, very easy. Roll it in, make sure it's coated, let it drip, pass it on, make sure it's nice and coated everywhere. This is not the type that needs to be covered in flour as well, because the dough will be sticky enough for the egg wash to get in. The next step after this is that we're going to deep fry them to golden brown. Because the flour is cooked, our center is also cooked. Only thing left to do is to deep fry them for a couple of minutes until the breadcrumbs are nice and golden at 180 degrees Celsius, about 350 Fahrenheit. As you can see, I do this with one hand. It's a thing we learn when we do in kitchen term the anglaise. That normally is first into the flour, then to your egg or egg whites only, then into your crumb, then or you store them in the freezer for later purposes, or you deep fry them or pan fry them right away. And final phase before eating is to deep fry them. A little trick with the oil, as we're gonna do 2 at a time, is you bring your oil to a heat. If you do it in a pan like I do now, you let it cool down and then you bring it up to the heat again. That way you the viscosity in the oil doesn't burn quite away, because once the oil is hot it starts bubbling, it starts evaporating, it starts doing everything, and your product can be burned. This way your product, if you're not careful enough, will burn, but not as quick as normally than when you throw things into the fryer. As you can see, it starts to get golden. Turn it around a few times. It will take a couple of minutes because I prepared my oil. It will be baked quickly. Also, this tip comes in handy for when you're frying donuts, actually. Like I said, I used to work with a baker, and he came up with this because something we have in the Netherlands, on New Year's Eve we eat a yeast dough that's not similar like a donut, but we put raisins in it. It's a beer batter with yeast and raisins. We deep fry it, eat it on New Year's Eve. And he came up with it: bring your oil to the heat, let it cool down completely, bring it up until needed. I'm using a sunflower oil. You can use canola oil as well. Two, 3 minutes max. And the last one goes in. here we go, the end result. Will look like this on the inside. Really nice, warm, just delicious. How did that song go again? Delícia, delícia, assim você me mata. Ai, eu te pego. Muito obrigado por assistir meu vídeo, tá? Beijo, tchau.